Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Birds fly south for the winter, but birds from up north winter here. Today we're going to talk about the birds of winter. Also, leaves fall off in the fall, but the tree is still alive and needs care. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Debbie Bruce. Miss Debbie is the owner of Wild Birds Unlimited. And Wes Hopper is here with us today. Wes is a certified arborist right here in Memphis. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good. All right, Miss Debbie, let's talk a little bit about the kind of birds that we'll see in the winter.
Okay. Well, not only will we see our faithful residents like our cardinals, chickadees, tufted titmice, nuthatch, and on, but some of our winter residents are either on their way back or already here now.
Okay.
Birds such as your junco, many of your native sparrows, your sapsucker, the woodpecker family, okay, and some of our winter warblers will be here.
Okay.
So it's a good time to start developing a refuge for your winter birds and your residents right now.
Okay, yeah, we want folks to know that all the birds don't just leave.
That's
I mean,
right.
they're still hanging around.
That's
okay?
right.
Now, since they'll be hanging around, what do we need to feed them?
Well, first of all, start out with a clean feeder.
Okay, it makes sense.
We like to drink out of clean glasses.
Sure.
They like to eat out of clean utensils as well. So it's a good time before winter really sets in to clean your feeders.
Okay.
Clean them with a hot water solution and with some soap. Then rinse them with 9 parts of water and 1 part of bleach, and that's going to kill any of the bacteria that's lingering in there. Make sure your hardware systems are ready to go and your bird houses are cleaned out. And then it's time to start filling up those feeders. During the fall, we have a quieter time at the feeders, but when winter sets in, we have a lot of activity.
Okay.
Birds will form their feeding flocks in numbers. If one bird finds food, everybody's going to find food. So it's safety in numbers and good to have multiple eyes to find them. So you'll have more activity at the feeders. And you want to feed seed. Predominantly, seed is going to be most of your seed-eating songbirds.
Okay.
And birds are quite adept at finding food in nature. So before you even start to put your feeders out, when you're planting, think about things that are going to hold on to their fruits and their berries through the wintry months, such as your crab apples and your sumac, dogwoods, junipers, your viburnums. But it doesn't take long for all that to be depleted.
Sure.
So you can provide seed and loose seed in feeders, such as this cylinder feeder, or you can provide it in an open tray, which is fun because it doesn't restrict anyone then on the tray. You can provide seed such as your Niger seed mixed with crushed hearts of sunflower for your finches.
Okay.
Or you can do compressed seed cylinders like this one here or this little guy over here.
I think those are so neat.
Aren't those fun?
Yeah, those are fun.
And the birds really like them, and they're so easy to do. But what's really neat about it is the birds have to work at it. So it keeps your bird there longer so you can enjoy watching them. Another type of food that you can provide for the birds would be suet. And suet is actually rendered fat. We use beef fat in ours.
All right.
And we want high calories. But if you have trouble with squirrels, you want to go with the hot pepper.
How about that?
Squirrels don't like it, mammals don't like it, but your birds will love it. But you know, in nature, suet doesn't grow naturally like seeds do. So one way to help the birds discover your suet feeder is frost it with peanut butter and put just a few seeds in it, and then they'll identify it as a food source pretty regularly.
And the hot pepper doesn't bother the birds.
The birds seem to love it. Birds seem to love it. But if you are feeding the birds and you don't want to feed the squirrels, either go with the hot pepper suet, and we also have hot pepper seed cylinders that'll help.
Okay.
Something else you can feed to the birds would be your mealworms. Mealworms can be either fed as live or dried. And a good place to place these would be in a feeder near your bird bath.
Okay.
Because that way the birds will find them pretty regularly as well. And you might have a bowl of fruit on your counter at home you don't realize you could share with the birds, and that would be apples.
Okay.
Cardinals love apples, red-bellied woodpeckers, your mockingbirds. Take an apple and slice it or half it and put it on a feeder and watch what happens there.
Didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what about water?
Water is so important. You know, when it's 95 degrees out, folks will think, oh, I need to put the water out for the birds. And they tend to forget when it's 25 degrees. But a clean bird is a warmer bird.
Okay.
Plus, they have to drink, just as we do every day. You can provide water in a dish, but when it's really freezing outside, then put a de-icer in it. That's an electrical unit that's going to turn on when the water reaches below, I think it's like 40 degrees, and it'll keep the water just de-iced. It's not going to make it a hot tub.
Okay, right.
But it'll keep it thawed out, because when you have frozen water everywhere and thirsty birds, you will not believe the activity you have on a bird bath with a de-icer in it.
Yeah, I can see them enjoying that.
They sure would.
That's for sure. All right. Now, while we have a little time left, let's talk about shelter.
Shelter's important. Landscape your yard for the birds in mind. That's the time of year in the winter when the leaves are off the trees, so it's easy to be seen by predators. So if you don't have a thicket or shrubs or that nearby for the birds to go inside when a predator comes by, whether it be a hawk or maybe a cat, which shouldn't be outside to begin with, then you can make a brush pile. If you're trimming those branches or find branches that have fallen on the ground, make a pile of branches. Or after Christmas, take a piece of rebar, stake it in the ground, and tie your Christmas tree to it after you discard it. And it'll be an area for the birds to get into. Put it near your feeder. It's a lot of fun, and you'll be surprised who will use it.
I think Wes is amazed by it as well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, think about that, because everybody pretty much just throws them on, to the curb.
Well, wait till spring to throw it to the curb.
Right, wait till spring to do that. Okay. Wow. So again, some of those predators, hawks, and some cats, are there any other out there that people need to know about?
As far as predators during the day would be predominantly your hawks.
Okay.
They're going to watch your bird feeder.
Okay.
If you have a mourning dove sitting on here and a hawk nearby, your hawk will come in and grab the mourning dove.
Oh, okay.
And if there's somewhere shelter nearby where they can get to, or where they can sit and wait for their turn at the feeder or the bath, that would help.
Okay. Wow, Miss Debbie, thank you for the good information.
You're welcome.
That.
You're welcome.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Wes, you remember this tree?
I do. It was a pretty warm day when we planted it about a year ago.
Oh, about a year ago.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to assess the tree for us?
Yeah. First of all, for those that don't remember, this is a golden rain tree. And it was, I think I stated when we first planted it that we rescued it.
Yes, we did.
It was one lost in inventory at whatever nursery that you got it from, and it was bound up in a container. And it was, I thought it was a nice challenge to make sure that this tree survived when we planted it. So we took it out of the container, we opened up the girdling roots that was in it, and then we planted it into the ground and mulched it and everything. And I'm glad it survived.
Yeah, it survived.
For such a young tree to be subjected to the climate, you know, in our hot Memphis weather, it's done really well. Understand it didn't flower last year, which is fine. It really didn't anticipate it. And after looking at it, right now the leaves look kind of weak, but they're fixing. They're getting ready to drop off for the winter. And the amount of foliage that is on it has really done its job. For those that don't know, the leaves are the food source and the energy producers of any tree. And I'm happy to see that this tree survived.
So photosynthesis is happening.
Photosynthesis is happening. Yay! And I've noticed that we've got 1, 2, 3 stems that have died back on it. And I'm not surprised at that. And
why do you think that is?
It's we took it out of a nursery environment. It was probably shaded, I'm going to assume. And we brought it out here and we put it directly in the elements where it belongs. And the strong in nature, the strong survive. And I believe next year that when we come out and look at this tree again, that we're going to see that it's even gotten larger. This tree did grow this year. That's a plus. I'm glad to see it. I think we should prune out these dead stems that are on it. And when you have a tree in this situation, less is better. So the less that we do to this tree, the better off it's going to be. We're going to let it nature take its course, and the strong will survive. So I'm going to take my pruners out. And
go ahead.
These dead branches here, and I will not cut out any green whatsoever. Where I'm pruning this at is at a node, and that's a point of where the buds start to grow.
I see it.
Hopefully, when we prune, I'm going to leave a little dead stub right there just for the sake of this dead stub is on top of the branch. So leaving it there, a short stub is going to help that compartmentalize a little better on top. There's one more right here. Boom, there we go. We're done with the pruning. We have a branch right here that is obviously not in the right spot. As this tree grows, this little stem right here could potentially start rubbing against the trunk of this tree and cause a wound, but that's to be dealt with later.
So we'll leave that for now.
Right now, it's got leaves on it. We're going to let it continue to produce energy for the tree. Now, when I say producing energy with a tree or plant, going through the photosynthesis process and producing energy, it is not for this year's growth. It's for next year. It's like filling up an extra spare tank on your automobile. So,
which is a good deal, right?
It's a good deal. So the more energy that it produces, the happier this tree is going to be next year. Now, what I'm also surprised to see that we still have some dirt mounded up around the base of the tree here. That's good. With this incline, I think we talked about it before. I was concerned about the water just flowing off the top of the ground and going down, just following the gravity and taking some of the soil away. But apparently, it's done well.
I think it held up pretty good.
It held up really good. One of the contributors to that is going to be this grass that's growing around it. You know, grass and trees usually don't mix. It's because most grasses don't grow in the shade. I don't think this tree is ever going to be a problem to the grass right here. We do need to keep the grass away, you know, to prevent it from growing around the base of the tree, because that means that you're going to have to do maintenance around the base of the tree, which could cause damage created by weed eaters or lawnmowers bumping in and taking the bark off.
And you've probably seen a lot of that type of damage, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I see it more on golf courses and yards where they hire the landscape companies to come in and mow the grass, and these guys are running through there. They're doing their job. They may not know that they're causing damage to that tree. And also, you'll notice that we don't have any mulch down here. That doesn't bother me either. The mulch, it probably should have a little bit of mulch this winter, but just enough to prevent this grass from growing through here.
Get that old Bermuda.
Get the Bermuda from growing in there, and it'll help maintain some of the moisture and keep the roots from drying up over the winter. Yeah.
Now, what about watering? Because, you know, we kind of went through a drought-like, you know, period earlier. Last month, so.
Yes. In our Memphis soils, in other cities, but we're in Memphis, our soils are compacted, meaning that the air, water, nutrient space has been, as the word says, compacted.
Okay.
And so there's not a lot of space in there for that water to percolate through.
Right.
And the water, like on this incline, will run right off the top
Okay.
of the soil and not penetrate to the deep enough to the tree's root system. We on the average, tree roots go maybe 8, 10, in some cases 12 inches deep.
Okay.
At the most.
At the most, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you'll see our storms blow trees over and the roots are just like a few inches.
Right.
That's from the compacted soil.
Okay.
Now, this is a Ross deep root water. You connect the water hose to it, and it has 4 holes at the base, and the water comes out in 4 directions. And when you're watering, you can pick this up at Dan West. You may have to order it, but it's like $35. It's well worth it. I use it on my own trees.
Okay.
When you want to get water down to the root system, you attach your water to it. Even if your soil's compacted, that water is going to be coming out and softening up that dirt.
So it can get down through the ground. Okay.
And I see I've hit rock already.
Right, yeah,
I remember that rock.
Uh-huh.
And there's our plant to go. And you can go down like so and let that water run a few minutes, pick it up, move it around.
Okay.
A tree this small, you could just do 4 corners and it would penetrate through there.
Now again, how long would you let the water run for a tree this size?
Just, I'd go count maybe to 20 seconds and then go to another hole. Okay. I like the grid pattern, meaning that you just go in a grid. For a larger tree, for a tree this size, you could just go around like so.
Okay. All right.
Maybe once, twice a week, maybe.
Twice a week, okay. And while we have a little time, Wes, do we need to consider fertilizing or anything as we go into the winter?
Not on this one, not just yet.
Okay.
This tree needs to gain a root system.
Okay.
You know, before you start adding fertilizers and too much water. It has to have the ability to absorb what you put down there. So you could add too much fertilizer, and depending on what type you use, whether it's triple 13, which is held together by salt, that nitrogen is held together by salt, and you can potentially burn the roots of the tree, and in trying to help the tree, you're actually causing it more harm.
Okay.
So I would stick with just water right now.
Stick with water?
If you want to put anything down, put some Miracle-Gro.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Put some mulch on it, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Wes, we appreciate this assessment of our tree here. Thank you much.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, I just wanted to tell you about a good use of my chicken poop. I have several chickens and they poop a lot, and instead of just getting rid of it, I clean it every day. I collect it in this recycled kitty litter box, and then when it gets heavy, I take it and I bring it to my compost bins, and the compost bins are made out of recycled pallets and a little bit of plastic, and they're sitting on concrete blocks. So I'm going to dump the poop in. Get that. Oops. Take my shovel, or fork in this case, move it around a little bit. The chickens get in and really stir it up, and then hopefully next spring I will have wonderful compost to put in my raised beds.
All right, here's our Q&A session. Miss Debbie, you jump in there and help us out. We're getting in trouble, okay?
Oh my.
All right, so here's the first viewer email. Would trees be hurt by planting ivy on them? What do you think about that, Wes?
Depends on the type of ivy.
Okay.
But most commonly is planted as the Boston ivy as an ornamental vine, and it does have the capability of overtaking the tree and its canopy. But what I don't like about vines on a tree is when we do a risk assessment on a tree, I can't do a risk assessment on a tree that has vines on it. I can't tell if it's got a big cavity back behind it, you know, one that could be detrimental to the tree if should a high winds come through and blow it over.
Okay.
You know, we can't see it. And as a tree climber, we don't like the vines. I generally turn those trees down because there's usually snakes, rats, bees, and could be birds up in there, a squirrel or a raccoon that we just can't see, and we just don't like that.
Okay. I guess in this area, I've seen a lot of English ivy up trees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen them do some damage to some of those trees as well, because I mean, I see them way up in the canopy of the trees.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really not healthy for the tree.
Right.
If it gets on the branch parts where the foliage is, it prevents that tree from, going through the photosynthesis process as well.
Sure. Okay. Wow. All right. So here's our next viewer email. We get this one a lot. My arborvitae is turning brown near the center trunk. What should I do? And this is from Billy. And I'm sure you've gotten this question a time or two.
I get it a lot. The arborvitae is an evergreen. An evergreen does have to shed its needles or its leaves, like a magnolia, or a pine tree, or an arborvitae. When the needles are falling off on the interior part of the tree, that is the old growth, and it's just shedding. Okay. So it's normal. If it's unsightly, just shake the tree a little bit, or brush them off, or take a water hose and wash them off, and keep a healthy tree.
Well, arborvitaes too, but if we have a dry winter, they do need to be watered.
During the winter?
During the winter.
We can have droughts in the wintertime as well. Just because it's cold outside and the trees have lost their leaves, it doesn't mean that we can't have a drought in the wintertime. Right. And so your plants do need watering in the winters as well, especially when we're anticipating a hard freeze.
That's right.
If the weatherman says we're going to have ice and snow this weekend, then give your trees a little bit of water. When we do have a drought, that means that the roots are exposed to emptiness in the soil. So when you add that water to the soil, you're helping to prevent those shallow roots from drying out and dying.
I like that, exposed to emptiness.
Exposed to emptiness.
I never heard it quite put like that before, but I like that. That's all we got you here, Wes. All right, here's our next viewer email. How much water should you give your mature trees when there are drought-like conditions? Second question, how would you go about doing that? And this is from Mr. Run. And Mr. Run, we just so happen to have Wes Hopper here as a certified arborist who knows about this. So what do you say?
First of all, figure out, try to learn what type of tree that you have in your landscape.
Right.
Yeah. And when you know what kind of tree you have, this is a tree identification book by the National Audubon Society, a field guide to the trees of the eastern region. Okay. It's a very good book, and you can easily identify your trees through a good ID book. Okay, good deal. Learn how your tree is going to respond to everything that you do to it. How deep the roots penetrate. Does that tree require a lot of water, or is it a species of tree that grows in boggy areas? Okay. Like different oak trees. You got an overcup oak that is a great urban tree, and it grows in poor soil conditions. And then you take another tree like the southern red oak that grows up a little bit on the higher ridges and has more drainage, so it doesn't require as much as water. Cherry bark oak does, it's the most common tree that we have in this area. It does require more water than, say, a post oak. Okay. Post oaks grow up high, so learn what type of trees that you have so you know how to treat them. Okay. This right here, to go further into the question.
Second question, right.
A tree in your front yard, let's say you have a nuttall oak, and your soil is compacted, just like most people's yards are in this area. So you have a lack of air, water, and nutrient space in your soil, and your water's really not going to penetrate very deep at all when you're actually doing a topical sprinkler system on the tree. And the incline as well, water could just run right off the top of the ground. So this is a deep root waterer, and you can also add fertilizer in this container right here. But this is a probe. It attaches, the water hose attaches right here, and turn it up moderate, and then slowly push this into the soil, and you're getting water down to your root system. And it's down at the base of this pointed area here, there's 4 holes where the water comes out. So when you're watering, you're creating more space in the soil for the water to go, therefore you're getting more water to the actual root system, not just watering on top of the ground. As far as how much to water,
that's always a hard question, I think.
Yeah, it could be, you have to understand your soil profile. Okay. Is that soil compacted? But as a general rule of thumb, you want to add about 1/2 to 2 inches about every other day.
Wow, okay. Every other day.
You kind of keep it moderate, and if you can overwater and then you're just wasting the water that you're putting down, or you can underwater and not be efficient with your efforts.
Okay. All right, we appreciate that. It's good stuff. All right.
You're welcome.
So Wes, Ms. Davis, we're out of time. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. If you would like to watch more Family Plot videos, including answers to questions we did not get to air, go to familyplotgarden.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.